As adults, if we struggle to do this, I have no idea how kids would cope with this.
Because if you want your child to understand what real ownership looks like, oh, we need to first practice it ourselves.
This is just the way it is. That's who I am. I'm not able to plan. I can't do it better. And, mom and dad will do it. I guess we can let them choose.
And choose, that is a very important word in this podcast because it's all about choice. If they have no time to think, they can't own anything. And sometimes being bored is okay. They might come up with a plan themselves. This is my time. This is my body. This is my mind. I get to choose where my attention goes. What is ownership? It's when your child actively decides to improve and they notice what's not working and they try again without you as a parent pushing them.
Look, this is your responsibility. Like, I'm here to guide you. I'm here to support you and coach you while you grow into it. But the question to ask is your child waiting to be told what to do? Or are they taking charge of their progress?
And we were asking, can you do the choreography all by yourself? Do you know the steps without looking at the person in front of you? And some of them admitted, I'm not sure if I can do it all alone. So that's a problem because some dancers are just following the group and the other dancers know the choreography so well, they could perform it solo. And they all say, but I try my best. But only one group takes ownership of the material. And some are assuming that showing up is enough, but trying your best is just the baseline.
Right. The ownership is knowing what you're responsible for and proving to yourself, not only to your teachers or to your folks, that you can do it alone. That said, we also want to say that some kids have the opposite concern, right? They don't lack ownership, but actually they have maybe too much of it. They're the ones who won't leave the studio, will take like all the corrections personally, or who'll practice until they're almost like hurting themselves, and still feel like it's not enough. And I think that's an opposite problem, which is bordering on perfectionism in the guise of ownership. And we need to talk about that too, because sometimes ownership really means knowing when to stop.
And knowing when to rest. Okay, right now you might be thinking, okay, but they're just learning to dance. Why does this ownership thing matter so much? And it's because ownership builds self-confidence, and self-confidence literally starts with the word self. So you have to set your child up to do the things on their own. So they realize, I can do this. I've done it before many times. And it starts really small. It's with spreading their own sandwiches or packing their school bag, maybe getting their dance bag ready, making their beds.
I remember we had this girl in our studio. Her name's Alice, and she was 14, and she was actually like quite smart, and she worked hard, right? So her mom came to me and said, "Oh, she's so dedicated. She spends a lot of hours in the studios, and I keep my hands off because she seems to have it all worked out." And the mom sees a prepared, a dedicated teenager, but on the back end, we see that she was wasting actually quite a lot of her time. In our classes, we have this like structure of warming up, practicing the choreography, getting feedback, watch others, give tips, practice together, and it keeps looping again and again. And we see this method every single week actually, but when she was practicing alone, so when Alice was practicing alone, she had a slight problem in the sense that she would come to the studio, go through the steps, or she's watching a video of the steps, but nothing was really happening. So she was kind of like retraining all the negative habits, or she was just marking
the steps and watching the video. And there's what we had to ask ourselves honestly, because we saw it didn't work. But did we ever sit Alice down and say, here's how you structure your solo practice session? We are modeling it in class every week, but we never explicitly taught her how to do it on her own. And we assumed, just like her mom, she would absorb it by herself, but she didn't. So part of that ownership gap was maybe on us. Although we were expecting something, we hadn't actually transferred. And that's,
the skills.
Yes, like what we've shown in class, you would think it's normal. They'll just do it by themselves. You're assuming that they'll get it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing about ownership. You see a 14-year-old, maybe they look like an adult already. They look responsible. They are showing up. But it doesn't mean, in that case, she's improving and learning.
Yeah. So without this ownership, dancers can look busy actually and still not make real progress. It's a little bit like treading water, but not really getting anywhere. I mean, of course, not every child learns the same way. Some generally struggle with organization, focus, and self-regulation.
Yeah, I think in that case, you cannot just say, I'll give them one pep talk. I've done my part to give my child a sense of ownership. I think it's just important to take smaller steps, a clear structure, and maybe a parent or teacher helping them build a framework until they can hold it on their own and do what it takes. Because the end goal, the destination will be the same, it's just a different route.
Yeah. I mean, we do this too, we'll sit down to work on something.
Like the script or this episode.
Right. And then, a notification on WhatsApp will pop up. And before you know it, you pick up the phone, you check it, and then you check Instagram, you check something else. And 20 minutes later, you're doom scrolling without even realizing, how one got there. And we're chasing all of these rabbits down one hole after another, looking really busy and feel busy, but in reality, we haven't made any progress. So I really, as adults, if we struggle to do this, I have no idea how kids would cope with this.
So if you feel as a parent, I'm already struggling with this, think indeed of your child. Of course, they are struggling also. And I think that's why the intention matters. We want to time block the calendar. You want to protect your space for deep focus and try to finish what you started before just jumping into the next thing. Because if you want your child to understand what real ownership looks like, we need to first practice it ourselves.
I mean, I think the question does come up, like, how soon should we begin with ownership?
Yeah, I would say yes, as young as possible. Maybe like the moment your child understands language, or that you can like set expectations. Let's say at 3 years old, maybe 3 to 5 years old, start really tiny. Let them then pick up their toys after the day, or maybe clear their plate after dinner. I'm sure they can hang their jackets on the coat hanger the moment they arrive, or even choosing between two books. With our son, we did the same. We're gonna read to you. What book do you want to choose, this or that one?
So, well, he would get the biggest, the longest story out.
Of course, but that's what I was doing also, having this precious time in the evening.
Yeah. I'm sure you can do quite a bit. You can build routines. You can help them pack the dance bag or the school, books together. Maybe they can write down corrections. I am in a small journal. There's something that we, teach our dancers to do, because by writing it out, kind of like cements it in their head. It provides a point of reference when they look back over the season to see what were the corrections. Maybe even with schoolwork, they can also plan their homework and their degree time. Not everyone wants to come directly from school and jump into their homework. There's maybe they need time to decompress. So it's something that you can agree with your child, help them make a choice, but they still have to do the work, right?
And then during adolescence, 12 plus, they can schedule their warm-up time before class. I'll go earlier so I can warm up. They ask the teacher questions themselves instead of you as a parent emailing on their behalf. There's quite some emails coming in that I think this child could have come to me to discuss this. They could take responsibilities for their room, their desk space. I would ask to put the laundry in the basket. Only the laundry that is in the basket will get washed, things like that. And when something goes wrong in a rehearsal or exam, that they figure out what they can do differently, that they can solve the problem before you are offering your solution.
Why do we bring this up about picking up their clothes? Because when we walk into the when we open the door to the changing rooms, when the dancers are in the studio,
you can't see the floor.
You really literally cannot see the floor because it's covered with clothing, bags, and strewn all over the place, shoes, bags, and equipment, and all getting mixed up. And I think we both agree that if you way too long, that they'll become set in their ways and they start to think, well, maybe, this is just the way it is. That's who I am. I'm not able to plan. I can't do it better. And, mom and dad will do it. Moreover, I think it just becomes part of their, identity.
Yeah. And after one of these competitions, Justin and I were talking about ownership. And one of the dance moms in our studio is a school teacher. And she was saying that one of the parents came to her frustrated. My child doesn't want to do homework. He keeps just running around the kitchen table. I can't do anything. And the teacher's response was, set a timer for 5 minutes and tell him you sit and focus. And if you do that, then you can go outside and play. And it's just that simple and clear. It's just a boundary with a reward. But you actually have to follow through and to be consistent, because something like homework might happen every day. So you work with this framework every day. Because as adults, we're constantly in the process of negotiation, setting terms.
And conditions in almost any conversation, in any relationship.
Yeah, true.
Right? So it goes to our point that we should teach these lessons to them at the earliest possible age.
Sometimes I find myself asking these kind of questions. How was your day? And then I'll get fine. Nothing will happen.
One syllable only.
So when you ask better questions, instead of why did you mess up, you ask what didn't work, or what will you try next time? Or after class, you might say, what's one thing you did well today? Yeah. And one thing you want to work on, instead of, did you have a good class?
Yeah, I think if you ask these kind of questions with a black and white answer, that you will get a yes or no, it was okay. And as a parent, I think we all, we're longing for more details and, want to listen to the, challenges and the rewards of what they did on the particular day. Yeah. So maybe you can ask your child, hey, what did your teacher ask you to focus on today? What were they happy about today? Yeah. What were they frustrated by today? I guess we can let them choose.
And choose, that is a very important word in this podcast, because it's all about choice. Do you want to practice before dinner or after? Because ownership is a synonym for choices. Do you want to run your solo twice, or do we work on that tricky lift 5 times? Or would you rather stretch downstairs while watching the television with the family? Or are you going to stretch upstairs with some music in your room? The point isn't what they pick, it's that they picked something.
Yeah. And I think as parents also, we can model that behavior. We can show them, our way of thinking. The point is not to get it perfect. The point is just to get the plan, just set a plan. You let them see that it's the initial steps can be messed up, but we will fix it, and we model that process. So we talk out loud. Let's say, for example, I as a father or you as a mom forgot to prep lunches last night, so now we're gonna have to rush. Okay, that brings some stress, but we still have to do it. But tomorrow, I will make a conscious decision to prep lunch the evening before. So let them also catch you making a list, crossing things off, adjusting it on the fly. And I think they will copy what they see far more than what they're told.
And also focus on the efforts, because things are messy. It will never be perfect. Yeah. Like you didn't nail that turn, but you kept at it without anyone telling you. Yeah. Or you noticed your arm was wrong and fixed it in the middle of the combination. Did you realize you did that?
Yeah, I think, and that's why you have to track this behavior, because and that's to the point about keeping a dance journal is you have some kind of a chart or some kind of notes or drawings which you can refer back to. But many a time it's just usually it's the same feedback that you get from your teachers, right? It's usually the same problems that come up, and something that we could not pay attention to. So this kind of a corrections journal for the older ones, 3 things that the teacher said, or 1 thing that they have to focus on for the next class. Maybe even a photograph of them working, let's say, for example, on the splits, and you're getting lower each time, and each month they can see the change. And I really, honestly, the tips may or may not work exactly for the situation. You'll have to adjust it, but generally speaking, it should put you on the right track.
So what does ownership now have to do with dance? How does ownership make better dancers? Well, I have students who practice their pirouettes every week, and they keep doing the same mistakes and make the same mistakes because a pirouette it's about balance, your alignment, your core strength, your turnout, the spotting of the head, and of course using the arms correctly. If you keep doing the same thing, you'll keep getting the same results. And if you do what you always do, you'll get what you will always get.
And a better way to practice is like listening to the teacher's corrections. So they're watching you from the outside. I think you should make a note of that. Maybe your own instinct says you need to practice on something else. But I think if we pay attention to those corrections and you say, yes, I will work on it consciously today, that you will actually get your dancer, or you as a dancer will get further. And I think you can work on the problems earlier.
And then it comes also, of course, to discipline, because you have to show up to practice even when you don't feel like it. And trust me, those days will be there.
Yeah, and when we used to go into a morning class, like the start was always the hardest because your body is like saying, I'm tired, my muscles are aching, I just don't feel like it. You don't have the energy for it.
And every morning, again, everyone's there. But after class, you feel amazing.
Always. I think after like the first few minutes, you start to feel more alive, and things get easier.
And that brings us to self-awareness. We talk about it in our book, The Dance Advantage. We call it thinking about thinking, which is metacognition. And it sounds quite academic, but it's something very easy and human. It's like the difference between just watching a sunset and noticing that you're watching a sunset. So the one is just experiencing, and the other one is being aware that you're experiencing. It's like you take a moment to look at your own mind at work.
Yeah. And for dancers, this is everything. It's not about just the physical, the execution of the pirouette for this example. It's noticing how you do it. Like how do you start? How do you get into it? How do you end the pirouette? Arms, shoulders, back. Everything counts at the same time, And so when they catch themselves, let's say, for example, dropping a pirouette, or they're dropping the back and just falling out of the pirouette, that correction will, stop coming from the teacher, but it has to start coming from within. It kind of intrinsically motivated to improve your pirouette.
It's that child who has this self-awareness, who will notice, I'm getting frustrated, instead of just melting down. And what can I do to help the situation? Yeah. Maybe do I need to go out of the room, some time out? Do I need to do some breathing?
You're speaking about examples outside of dance.
Yes, of course, because if I feel my self-control, I'm getting annoyed with the situation. It's because I can see myself getting annoyed. Yeah. And for that matter, these children who think about thinking, they become sharper, more efficient learners, not just in dance, as Justin said, but everywhere else.
Yeah. Very often what we hear from other teachers, and not only in dance, but also in school, is that the parents are doing a lot of things for the children. So maybe doing homework for them, they're helping them pack, they're sorting out the schedule and jumping in too fast when they struggle. It's like if you ask a question and you see your child is struggling with it, that you'll jump in immediately to complete the sentence.
It made me think, like in our family, when we were packing suitcases to go on a holiday, I really enjoyed it that I was showing my son how I was packing. And after a while I said, now you pack and I'll just do a final check. And then suddenly that decision came to go study abroad. And I was so happy we put in that work of how do I pack a bag? How do I make a suitcase? Because suddenly he had to be capable to do it on himself. But important is tell your child you're watching out for them so they can rely on your knowledge that you're there, but in the background. just to catch them if they fall. The other thing is overscheduling. I have students in my class and they come from hockey, then they have piano, then they have ballet, then they have jazz, and in the evening they'll still go to volleyball.
What happens to the time that the jazz class comes around?
Yeah, I can see by the time I'm teaching them jazz, they're so tired and they're asking me when is the class ending, because I still have to go to volleyball and they're only 7 years old. Yeah. So I would say overscheduling. If they have no time to think, they can't own anything. And sometimes being bored is okay. They might come up with a plan themselves.
Yeah. And there's also what we see is there's a lot of like these busy kids have this problem with starting and stopping. So they start something new, it's exciting, and when it's not exciting, they just drop out. So they'll miss a lot of opportunities. They also don't develop problem-solving skills to be able to solve problems that are holding them back.
What makes me truly happy is the fact that I'm growing and learning, and that as a progress. For sure, for your child, it will be the same. And therefore, when one invests time, energy, and effort into solving a problem, if it turns out positive, it gives a sense of achievement.
Right.
A sense of growth, and then the joy and the happiness and the confidence will grow.
So I think solving problems effectively is intrinsically linked to a happier life.
For the dancers watching the influencers who are dance influencers, everything looks amazing. They nail every turn, they are flexible, they look amazing. And anything less, and you're somehow feeling like you're falling behind, somehow you're not enough. And that pursuit of amazing, it's exhausting and it's unreasonable. And honestly, do you even need it? All this posts, sometimes I'm thinking, how does this make me feel? And it's harder on the parents too. Because when we were young, it was simpler. Do your homework outside and play. There was nothing on TV anyway. Right. But now you're driving them to 5 different activities because you want to give them every chance. And because that's what everyone seems to be doing, because all the other moms and dads are also driving around. And if you're doing anything less, it feels like you're letting them down. The pressure on young shoulders nowadays is huge, but also so is the pressure on the parents.
Yeah, and that's why I think ownership as a topic is not optional anymore, because it's everything around you is kind of fighting for your attention. And I think the danger is that if we are not careful about where we spend our attention, someone else will grab it and determine that for you. So what you consume, it does matter. What you watch, what you read, who you follow, who you let into your life, into your headspace. I think it matters more than ever.
Yeah, and that is precisely the lesson we want our children to carry with them. This is my time, this is my body, this is my mind. I get to choose where my attention goes, and that's real ownership.
Yep.
Action. So I would say set a start time and stick to it. Not I'll practice later or I'll do that later. For myself, I note the time on a little paper, and I promise myself to be working on the project, let's say for 45 minutes of deep focus. Or for your child, he might say, I'll start my stretches at 4:15, put it on the clock, the timer defines the action, and then leave all distractions in another room and just focus on that one task at a time.
It's becoming like a productivity.
Yes. Having the block time and keep going till that task is complete.
Yes, I think the next thing would be, as we are taking ownership of this, of our own progress, it's important to start with intention, not just wake up and let's see
what we do
today. Today I'm going to work on my turns. I'm going to work on 1 or 2 different things, not too much. But if it's let's say, for example, translate the homework, we're going to finish that essay. We're going to write that many words before a certain period of time. And when it's committed to that intention, I think you automatically make sure that it becomes, it really comes to pass.
And then by the end of the week, you just take 5 minutes. What did you get done this week? What kept slipping? oh, what's the plan for next week? Just check in often. And if things didn't work, it won't. There's always another opportunity. And that's ownership becoming a habit.
Yeah, that's when we talked about metacognition. It's like just stepping back a little bit, just like kind of like observing yourself a little bit without the emotions and the stress of it all, right? Life is difficult. And the point was that once you fully accepted that, the suffering that comes from resisting it falls away. And you stop fighting the fact that things are hard and you just get on with it, And I think ownership is the same way. This is I'm responsible for it. And if I know there's always going to be challenges, they're going to be big ones, small ones, scary ones, annoying ones. It's relentless, it'll never stop. So not for anyone. So once you stop expecting it's going to be easy, once you accept it, and that's just the journey. And it doesn't come with the finish line, unfortunately, as long as we're alive. I think that's a shift that we'll make. And you approach it with a calmer mind. You stop wasting energy wishing things were different and start using that energy to actually move forward. That's the whole point of what we've been talking about today. That ownership is a practice. It's a daily one for all of us. So with that, we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for being here.
I hope you liked it.
Bye.
Bye.